Hello and welcome back. I know it's been a long time. I've been busy well, I was on vacation last week and just doing other things, but I've been very busy in the greenhouse, so I figured I should provide you with an update on what's going on. Everything's going very well. Like I said, I was on vacation last week, so I did do a lot in here, getting ready for fall crops and whatnot. My flowers out here are past, so my intention is to plant something else there. I haven't decided what yet, but that will be on the agenda soon. So, getting into the greenhouse, it's alive again. I have all kinds of stuff in here. Lots of herbs that are going to be dried, some which I've already done already. I have lots of basil, lots of parsley, onions. These two tomatoes I repotted. One of them, he got a little tall, so I kind of had to put it through the shelving there because it was getting pretty tall. But they have flowers on them. I don't think they have, doesn't look like either one of them have any tomatoes on them yet, but I just wanted to see how they would grow in the greenhouse. So the foliage looks good. They're not really producing anything yet, so I'm not sure if they will or not, so that's to be seen. But I've repotted all kinds of stuff. These are all herbs from seeds. I have marjoram, there's some thyme, some parsley in the back. This is all the basil. I started a bunch of basil from seed, and I think every single seed took off, so I had to split those up. But you probably noticed this little basil plant looks a little smaller than it was the last time, and actually I can see it's got some flowers that I'm going to have to snip off. But I cut a bunch of basil and I actually dried it in the oven. I'd never dried it in the oven before. I've always just hung it, and it takes forever. So I just put it in the oven for probably like 45 minutes to 55 minutes. It was like 45 minutes to an hour at the lowest temperature, and the lowest temperature on my oven was 170. And it got nice and crispy, so I crumbled it up. So I'll show you that in a minute. More basil here. Some seedlings I've started. This is mostly my fall stuff for lettuce. I've got some spinach, some broccoli, two types of cabbage, and some cauliflower. So things are starting to sprout, so I'm going to have to get those repotted so they can have room to grow. And I did repot. These are some red peppers that I had started from seedlings, so those are going good. Again, just to see how things grow in the greenhouse as compared to in the garden. We'll take a trip out to the garden in a little bit. The spinach is doing really good. I actually made Shane a sandwich today using some of the spinach and one of the cherry tomatoes from the garden. So that was good. More basil. So like I said, I've been pretty busy with seedlings and getting things ready. But these are what I've done. The smaller jar over here on the right, that's the basil. I had a ton of basil leaves, and that's all it crushed down to. So I'm actually pretty happy that I'll have all this other basil, these plants, plus all the other ones over here, that I can do the same thing with, dry them and crush it up for winter. The one in the middle, that's my parsley. That's in the garden. And surprisingly enough, I have been able to do a batch of pickles already. I've been talking to a lot of people, just in general here and there about gardening, and a lot of people seem like their cucumbers aren't growing. I talked to one of my friends, and she said she's got tiny little cucumbers and they just don't want to grow. Well, I don't have that problem. My cucumbers are going crazy. I think I picked about 10 cucumbers, and I did 4 of this size jar of bread and butter pickles. So I picked the cucumbers, made them into pickles that day, so hopefully they'll come out nice and fresh. And I do the water bath canning with these, so they can be left out on the shelf. So that was something else I did last week on my vacation. So that's about it for the greenhouse. Oh, one last thing. These little guys, these are onions that I started from seeds. I don't know if you remember in a video I did a while back, I was trying it. I've never done onions from seeds, and a lot of them didn't really take, but I did get a few that did, so I put these in there, and they're actually growing pretty good. So I've got a couple there. Those were from bulbs right here. And these smaller ones right here, those were from seeds. So I got a few. I mean, not too many, but we'll see if they'll grow. So like I said, that's the update for inside the greenhouse. So now we can head outside and see what's going on in the garden. One thing I did try to do, and it's not looking like it's going to be very successful, is I had this spot dug out for actually some sunflowers, and the critters ended up getting them. But I had some excess. I had 2 extra summer squash and a winter squash in the garden that were just in pots. So I tried to transfer them over, but it's not looking like they like this location. So I don't know if it was just too late to transplant them, or it's not exactly the best soil in here. I did add some compost and some soil in the ground as I dug the holes out, but it doesn't look like they're going to do very good. So I did have to put a fence around it because I was worried about any of the critters getting into it. We've had a rabbit around, and just any other little critters. So nothing's eaten them, but they just don't look like they did good. So I guess I can chalk that up as a fail for this, but that's what it's all about. I try stuff and it works. I try stuff and it doesn't work. Now to the garden. I'm pretty sure everything looks a lot bigger than the last time I did a video. We've had, let's see, we're almost at the end of July, and according to our weather station, we've had almost, I think, 12 to 13 inches of rain this month already. So some things I'm finding are liking it, some things not so much. So we'll go through all that. But my peas are finally starting to take off, so that's good. Shane helped me with some climbers for them because it really did take them a while to get going, but once they did, they wanted to climb. So we got those going, and that's the first thing Maddie comes in and gets is the peas, so she likes that a lot. This is my bush of cucumbers. It's 4 cucumber plants, and like I said, everybody else that I've talked to said their cucumbers are terrible this year, but I don't have that problem. The parsley right here in the middle, I've already clipped that and dried the parsley. That's what I just showed you in the greenhouse, and it's bouncing back, so I'm sure I'm going to be able to do another batch of that. My thyme, I'm going to do some dried thyme, and over there is the oregano, so I'm going to do the same thing with both of those to have some nice herbs for the winter. We did make a batch of meatballs and spaghetti, I think it was on Sunday, and we used all my herbs. My dried herbs, my fresh herbs, and they were delicious. So I'm really looking forward to taking all these tomatoes and making real homemade sauce from everything from the garden. But over in here, the cherries are starting to turn already, so that's great. Some of my tomatoes are producing more than others, but in general, they're all doing really, really well. These ones are just ones in the pot, so they're not really producing a lot. They look healthy though, so I'm hoping, maybe they'll turn. But the other plants that I have are doing really good. You can see I had to stake up the cucumbers because they were just going out of control. You can actually see here they're trying to grab onto the peas, so that's a problem. We got to stop that from happening. I had to put this divider between the cucumbers and the tomatoes, and actually I can see now the cucumbers are reaching over that. So I guess I need to figure out something to put a little bit higher so the cucumbers don't interfere with my tomatoes. I don't think I've ever had cucumbers bush out like this before. I'm trying to think. I think they're just pickling cukes, so I don't know, maybe next year I'll find a different location for them or trim them back. I don't know, but I can't have them overtaking everything. But you can see right here, it's already grabbing onto that tomato plant. That's why we had to put this fence here. But apparently it's not working. They're not listening. I have tons and tons of tomatoes on all these plants. Look at those, are beautiful. Very nice tomatoes. Those I think are the pink brandywines. Those are the ones I got specifically to make tomato sauce with, but I'm sure they're good in anything you want to make. These ones are like a mini kind of beefsteak, so those are already starting to turn, so that's great. Very happy about that. And oddly enough, this plant and the one behind it, they had a lot of flowers, but they have very little tomatoes on them, so I don't know if it's just the variety or, I mean, I keep them trimmed up. You can see they are pretty well trimmed. I mean, I probably could do a little bit more on that one, but they're just not producing a whole heck of a lot, which is kind of strange to me. And these ones in the pots aren't doing real good, these smaller pots. So, I mean, I guess I understand their roots don't really expand like the others do. But the ones in these pots are doing really good. These are much bigger pots. They seem like they like it. The tomatoes are growing nicely. Like I said, I keep them trimmed up, so everybody looks good. I've got some peppers starting to come in, just some little peppers, and I've always had a problem with peppers. I always have a lot of foliage and very little peppers, so I'm happy to see that there's some peppers in here. These sunflowers got huge, which I kind of thought they would get big. I actually had to trim the leaves from the bottom because they were really, these are the green beans underneath, and they were really, sheltering them from the sun and the rain and whatnot. So I just decided to cut the lower branches off the sunflowers. There weren't any flowers on them, so, and even if there was, I mean, I don't want them in here if they're gonna do that, so I did trim those up. The broccoli's coming in good. My broccoli's been flowering really quick, so I don't know if that's because of the rain too. But I can see that there's a nice head over on that one, so I'll probably be clipping that in the next day or so, because I don't want them to flower, because then they're basically ruined. We've had some turnips already. The turnips are delicious. They're probably about the size of a baseball, which is perfect. I don't want them to get too big, because then they tend to get a little bit bitter. So we've had those already. We've had a bunch of green beans, another thing Maddie likes to come in here and pick on her own. The corn's doing great. It's not super tall. They're mostly about the size of me. Some of them didn't get as big. This one, it's got its little tassel on top, but it's probably about up to my waist. You can see some of these already have silk starting, so that's very exciting. So hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have some corn. The corn really seemed to like the water. But now it needs sun. Everything needs sun now, so hopefully we can get some sun. These are the giant sunflowers that I had started in the greenhouse. One of the ones I planted outside the garden got eaten, so I wanted to put them in here so they got protected. But you can see all the corn's growing really good. Another squash over here. The squash, it seems like it's the one thing that hasn't liked the abundance of rain. I've had to actually cut off quite a few of the fruits that the ends were rotted. I think I cut, 6 or 7 that were growing really nicely, and then we got inundated with rain for like almost 2 weeks. It just rained basically every day, a little bit of something. We had some torrential rain. We had one storm, we got up to 3 inches of rain, and they obviously didn't like the abundance of rain. So it seems like they're bouncing back now. So hopefully they will continue to grow good. Here is the other squash plant. You can see it looks like they're starting to grow nicely again. We actually did have one last night for dinner, a good sized one that kind of snuck up on me. And I'm very excited. My winter squash are growing. I have tons and tons of winter squash in here. There's actually one, let's see if I can see it. It's a good size one. Oh, it's way over here. I don't know if you can see it that good, but it's a good size one. And they're starting to change color a little bit, but it looks like that plant's going to produce very nicely, so I'm very happy about that. And here is the Brussels sprouts, which it looks like, oh yeah, I can see on the, yeah, I'm sure you probably can't see it because it's kind of small, but on the bottoms of the leaves where it attaches to the stem, you can almost see the tiny little sprouts starting to develop. That's more of a cold winter crop, so I'm sure that will get better as the season goes on, but that's the update for the garden. Lots of bees. Shane's got his little pool here for the frogs or the birds. I actually see birds in here taking baths quite frequently, so they obviously like it. I can see actually a lot of bees flying around. We've actually had some honeybees in our garden, so I guess someone probably has honeybees around here. So that's that for this week. Oh, and actually one last thing. Let me show you this. My sunflowers blossom. Actually, there's a bee in there right now. These are just the flower ones that I planted. These I planted very early in the season, but they're much taller than me. This plant's probably close to 7 feet tall, but it's got all kinds of little buds on it. I don't know if they're all gonna blossom, but this one was the first one to blossom, so very happy about that. And back to the greenhouse, I have plenty more work to do. I have a lot of stuff that needs to get into bigger pots. Like I said, for fall planting, you got to get ready for that now. Hopefully I'll have a nice harvest of broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower. I've never grown cabbage or cauliflower, so I'm anxious to see how that comes out. I'll end up using these bigger pots to plant that so the roots can get some nice space. I'll probably use this one right now. It's just kind of my utility box. I'll probably use this for my turnips. We have been really enjoying those. They're so sweet. They're so good. So I've had a request to grow more turnips. So I'll see how those grow in the greenhouse. But as always, thank you for watching, and I appreciate any comments or questions or suggestions, anything like that. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next time. Stay tuned.